Hello, everybody. Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas here. I had a comment on my Facebook today about the video from last night. Was the interview for the People in the Attic interview? It went live last night, and so I'm just going to jump right in. It's a real short read here. It's this comment of the day from, this was a comment in reference to the People in the Attic interview that was released yesterday, where I encouraged everybody listening to look at the historical maps for my home at 3802 Faircircle, Midland, Texas on Google Earth. Everybody can do that. Sharon said she was going to do that in her message today. And then that's how I copied and pasted what Sharon wrote here. She says, Buddy Wayne Webb Right. However, I learned some new things last night listening to the summation in a more chronological order, like I didn't realize how long you were living there before you were shot. And I'm going to look at the historical pics of your home as well. May God continue his blessings and cover you. Okay, that was real kind of Sharon, my friend on Facebook. I said, yes, I hope that many people go look. I opened it up again this morning and took this screenshot. So this was made today. It's dated June 2011, and you can clearly see where the tunnel was located that was used for the underground parties. May God bless you and Happy New Year. And then I put a link to the video, People in the Attic interview from last night. Okay. Let's look at this. I took this picture today, this screenshot. Okay, and I want to show you here that up here it was historical. That you had to go to the historical pics, and I dated it June 11, so it went back into time. And and I was shot in January 2012, so that was right there, just right before I was shot. The Midland Home Depot store. Anybody can look at this at Google Earth, and I was showing behind the Midland Home Depot store, and between my house, you can see real clear where they cut a ditch. See where the asphalt's a different color, where they paved over that little section right there. That's the tunnel, I believe, that was used for the underground parties. And then there was one of the underground homes here in the backyard. Okay, and I was shot on this side of my home by somebody under my home. Absolute proof shows I wasn't shot with my gun. We know where I was shot. And then here I'm showing where this bunker is. The underground home in my backyard is seen on old Google Maps. It's one of the 4 underground safe houses that was put in 1987 for the Bushes at a cost of $7.35 million on permit, as per Layla O'Brien, the CAD a programmer that I documented. This is where the also parties were held and where the young girl was murdered at in October 2010 that Angie had told me about. Remember, Angie left my home. 5 minutes later, she's at the location of the party. I believe she parked at Home Depot, come in, she's at the party, and she told me about the young girl that was murdered for refusing to prostitute. She was afraid to report that murder and said that high-level police were at the parties. Okay. Here's my next one. It's another short read. Prior to January 22, anybody could look up my address on Google Maps and they would see a bunker in my backyard on the map screen, which could not be seen on the satellite screen. Obviously, this is one of the 4 underground safe houses that were said to have been put in for the Bushes in '87 with a cost of $7.35 million. This was removed from Google Maps after I told the city of Midland in an information request form that there were multiple people documented saying that underground homes were here, and there was supporting evidence found on Google Maps. I mean, how stupid can you get? Obviously, it's here. I believe this is where the young girl was murdered at for refusing to prostitute at a 2010 Permian Basin International Oil Show party that had police there. My friend, Angie McGee Hurley, had left my home and was at the location of the party in 5 minutes. I know this because we were talking on the phone while she drove there. Somebody could check our phone records. It's obvious that the people who were at the oil show parties were parking in the Home Depot parking lot, going underground inside that store, and then coming back to my home via the tunnel seen on Google Earth, with the parties held in the underground home in my backyard that could be seen on Google Maps. One day I was telling a Home Depot clerk about my story, and she blurts out, "If you happen to see a lot of cars in the parking lot late at night, then it's because we're stalking." I hadn't seen that or asked about that, so I took that as a clue. The people at an oil show party would need a lot of parking, and they would need an excuse to explain it. Okay, obviously that clerk knew what was going on at night. Why all them cars are parked in the parking lot of the Home Depot store. Okay, and this is an old meme I created, and I said go to Google Maps, look up my address, and switch between the map and the satellite views. You can no longer do that because they deleted it in January 22. They deleted it. Okay, and at the bottom I just put some facts. You know, July 2nd, 2008, Rini Escobar Sanchez reported missing from Odessa. In 2013, I suggested law enforcement they look here. He's never been found. That's one person believed may have been murdered at my house. I was told there were 4 people murdered at my house. Mike Lahan, October 12, 2008. He dies the week before the 2008 oil show starts. His death certificate says in Fort Worth, but a neighbor says it was in this house. Okay. October 25th through 28th, 2010, my friend Angie tells me about the young girl murdered at an oil show party that was happening 5 minutes from my home. I believed in the underground homes. January 28, 2012, I was ambushed and shot by somebody under my home with my phone lines cut and burglar alarms going off in the attic. July 17th, 2019, 2 weeks after showing Homeland, where I believe the human trafficking murder tunnels were at, concrete was poured. Okay, used to you could go look up my house on Google Maps. You see a bunker in the backyard. That got deleted in January of this year. You can no longer see that. But here's the above ground satellite. You could never see it from above ground. That's how I knew it was the underground bunker that multiple people said were here. Okay. Here's the next comment. On the left-hand side of this meme is a screenshot of CAD programmer Layla O'Brien telling me that this safe house project had a budget of $7.35 million. So it's not Buddy said, she said. I got a print screen. On the right-hand side is an email from Julia Weidman, the woman that drove down from Dallas and met with the city of Midland to see the permits. She was gleefully told by James Rawls that the permit records had been accidentally deleted around 2014-2015. Isn't that mighty convenient, right? Since we were told that it was on permit, $7.35 million. Keep in mind that I was shot by somebody under my home in 2012, and it's now proven that police were under my home. James Rawls, who was the keeper of the records and had met Julia, used to work for Home Depot. Isn't that interesting? Okay, here's the email that I got from Julia. I said, Julia, just send me an email and tell me what happened. You know, and she says, James Rawls was clearly prepared to tell me about the missing records. This was on November 22nd, 2019. And when I asked him about the permit records for storm shelters in Midland, he, with a smile, told me that all the permit records prior to 2015 had been destroyed or lost due to an attempt to digitize the department records in 2014, 2015. I guess that's because their IT was so stupid they never heard of a backup. You know, I worked in IT. We had backups. But, you know, that's pretty bad for the city of Midland's IT department to be that stupid to never hear of a backup. I asked him twice if he was the gatekeeper for these records, and he answered that he was. In other words, there was nowhere else to go but his office. When I brought up the subject of the basement at Home Depot, it clearly unnerved him. But he was downright gloating about those missing records. That's what Julia Weidman told me. She's the lady that drove down from Dallas after hearing about these records on permit for the safe houses that Julia Weidman talked about. Okay, I said the next one, this is the secretly recorded phone call of the woman who told me there were 4 underground homes here buried at least 25 foot deep, and they were having pedophile parties down there. I mentioned that in the video, but of course we didn't hear it, and we're going to now.
We're talking about, it was not 1 million, it was actually 4, and they're actually homes.
That are underground?
3-bedroom, yes, they're 3-bedroom homes.
Well, I'm sitting right on top of it too, you know, that's the other side of it. You know, I'm trying to think when you talk about,
yes,
you know...
you live near a draw, right?
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah, it is pretty close to a draw.
He even knew things like this. I'm like, this is too crazy. This is too much.
I did a Facebook post recently called Bunkers, and it was something that I noticed that was brought up in court by the district attorney and even my attorney. They used that term bunkers, and they used it like 4 different times. Well, I had never even thought of bunkers, and I had never used the word bunker or even said bunkers. Yeah. But they're sitting there calling it bunkers, and which I'm thinking they already knew what it was. You know what I mean? That these are bunkers, and that's why they 3 underground.
4.
Oh, 4 underground. 4. Houses or whatever, and
yes, where's each of? They're all in total $4 million.
$4 million, and see, that's what the first.
I asked them about the pizza parties. They said they're not called pizza parties, but I know what you're talking about.
Right, the pedophile parties.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
and see, a couple of weeks, you probably read all this before, but a couple of weeks after I got out of the hospital, that ex-wife comes by my home, and she says, "You don't know how many lives you ruined with your idiocy." And of course, my idiocy was staying home and minding my own business. I'm shot inside my home. And but what she was saying was a lot of people were here, and they're going to have their lives ruined. And
Do you know how many feet that gun pushed through?
that
Around it was, because he said that his houses are 25 feet under.
25 feet. So there's specific details from that lady. There's 4 of them. They're 3-bedroom homes. They're buried at least 25 foot deep. They're having pedophile parties down there. And that's what I was told in that phone call. So now it's not he said, she said. You heard it for yourself. This next one says, Rhonda Denman Rogers told me that underground facility was a half block away. Notice that she didn't say 2.5 blocks, so she knew exactly where it was located. I suspected this was the location of one of the other 4 underground homes, and maybe in this empty lot around the corner on Whittle Way in Westmont Court. This home had the same weird mortar problem that my home had, which is believed to have been caused by digging under it and disturbing the foundation. It also had a water well, and my next door neighbor has a water well about 20 feet from where it's believed the underground home in my backyard is located. Possibly the young girl who Angie told me was murdered at during the 2010 oil show party was killed there at one of the other underground homes that's a half block away. Here's what Rhonda told me right here. I said, my home's sitting on some type of underground facility, which is very important, or at least near this facility. She says, I know it's a half block away, right? She didn't say 3/4 of a block, 2.5 blocks, 5 blocks. She knew exactly where it was. And a half block away is an empty lot around the corner, and that's where I'm showing you, Whittle Way, Westmont Court. And there's a water well, and that home right there, 3900 Westmont Court, had the same weird mortar problem my home had, that's believed to be caused by digging under the home. Okay. So there's one more person saying underground homes are here. Now let's do another one, and this one comes from a Midland sheriff. If you can't trust them, who can you trust, right? The famous Midland sheriff Gary Painter died in 2019 during the election for a new sheriff, and during the election for a new sheriff in 2020, I secretly recorded sheriff candidate Joe Lozano telling me that the underground homes had been the hideout for Painter. Interestingly, Sheriff Painter was friends with George H.W. Bush, and it has been said that the underground homes were put in for the Bushes in 1987 at a budget on permit of $7.35 million. Here we're going to listen to another one so you can know it's not he said, she said. Okay.
A woman named Rhonda Denman Rogers tells me that the underground facility is a half block away. And I also have a screenshot of this statement. She didn't say it was 1.5 blocks, so she knew exactly where it was at.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
Buddy, you know, that was Painter's hideout thing. Okay?
See, Painter was friends with Bush. Isn't that interesting? Okay. All right, I'm going to go to the next one here. I was told by yet another person that the underground homes was being used as an illegal casino and brothel by high rollers. She asked me to keep her anonymous because she's afraid of these dangerous criminals, and I don't blame her, okay? But here was the conversation. She says, yeah, it's so bizarre, but I believe had a lot of people recently past week talking about the underground tunnels here and discussing the underground. Word here in Midland now is there's a game room that all the high officials go to, and bet money, and win money and whatever else they do down there, which is prostitution. But I hear more and more people talking about it, And then I replied back, in 2012, I suggested to an FBI agent named Dominic, maybe it's an illegal casino and brothel. And he said, maybe. And, the way he said it convinced me that that's what it was going on. And that makes sense, as that's what was happening for the oil show parties, etc. That this is a money maker. They got an illegal casino going down here. And like I said, it's wealthy people and important people. And evidently they believe they're above the law. And, they can murder little girls that don't want to prostitute. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. Because that's where I believe it happened at. And let me show you the last one. We'll finish up. It says, on July 2nd, 2019, I met Homeland Security Paul Cervantes at the Midland Home Depot store, as I said in the video yesterday. And I showed him where I believe the human trafficking murder tunnel was located that had been used for the underground oil show parties. 2 weeks later, on July 17th, they dug up the ground and poured concrete there. Homeland's job is to stop human trafficking, but it looks like they're helping them here. I had told them about the forced prostitution murder of the young girl at the 2010 oil show party that my friend Angie had told me about. I reported this agent to the U.S. Inspector General. That's who you're supposed to report corruption to. But it looks like they're okay with the murder of young girls too. Here's the last video. On July 2nd, I met Homeland at the Home Depot. On July 17th, they dug up the ground and there's pouring concrete. I want to show you there. That's what we seen earlier. That's where I showed them where the tunnel was connected. They're going to the underground home in the backyard.
Here. I think I'll take a picture here. This is where they're doing the concrete work.
Look,
You can
concrete's
see them
coming
out
off
there.
the truck.
There's the concrete truck. And see, I was just there 2 weeks ago with the Homeland Security agent, showing them where I suspected the tunnel entrance was.
My home's right over there. And so that's what it looks like is they were pouring concrete to cover up the human trafficking murder tunnel. This is Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas.